Hi, this is Robert Leiterman with the Bluff Creek Podcast. This is with the in the field stuff, and I know I like getting out and interviewing people, and I got a chance to go to BeachFoot, and that was this year, just off the coastal mountains in Oregon. It was great. Met a lot of new friends, and again, it was their 16th annual. They've been at it for quite a while. I heard about it and got a chance to go, and it was great. Kip talked me into being one of the guest speakers, and I'm glad I went. Got to meet a lot of neat people and made a bunch of new friends. But while I was there, I decided to do the in-field interviews. I lucked out and I was able to interview about 3 individuals. And old friends, some new friends. It was great. And I got those interviews for you, and I hope you enjoy them.
This canyon wall carries my tune. The only one my song. All the coyotes and the wolves. But if I drink enough of this flask, I can hear them sing your song too.
Hi, this is Robert Leiterman with the Bluff Creek Project. And I'm actually up in, I wish to say about Central Oregon near the coast.
Central Oregon coast, yeah, range, coast range.
Yeah, I'm here attending the first time I ever have attended it, and I thought I never would, but I actually am. So I showed up here for the BeachFoot
conference.
BeachFoot conference, and I get to meet new friends and travel around, and I'm actually giving a presentation at the Bluff Creek later on today. Hopefully somebody will show up for that, but. I got a bunch of slides. I was at a point where I was like dealing with a lot of projects, and I said, well, I probably should use the photos from the book since I recognize those. So I went through it. I was going through the whole file. So I'm going through a whole bunch of file stuff, and there's like that looks good, that looks good. So when I got done, it was like 300 something pictures. Like, oh, I didn't go through it, so I'm just going to show them all. And I'll just go, oh yeah, this is the time, and yeah, anyhow, that's my plan today. I guess I got that at 4. So. But we're lucky because we got to meet new people. I'm here with Dennis Day.
Yes, Dennis Day.
And you're a full-time researcher, so you're retired and artist. And
yeah.
I'll let you go ahead. Tell a little bit about yourself.
I'm a retired and I'm a researcher, and I probably get 90 to 100 days a year in the woods. And I'm also an artist, and I do a lot of Sasquatch portraits. So got some on display at BeachFoot.
I saw some of those. You gifted me with some, and I really appreciate that. I like those. I have a place for those to be put.
Yeah. I displayed some at the Forks Festival this year up in Forks, Washington. And I have spoke once at another festival, Marble Mount, up in northern Cascades. So I just got cornered and wrestled into this interview.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. All the followers of Bluff Creek Project appreciate it too. Yeah. This is not very often. This is your area. I mean, this is where you operate. This is where you do a lot of your research. And today, you've taken me on like a 45-minute walk, and you showed me a lot of some tree breaks and some what they call tree structures.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because some of those, I can't just come right out and say, oh, those fell out of a tree. I mean, you showed me one spot that a tree had crossed the road, and the branches were broken off this tree, and then they're stacked next to another tree. And nature doesn't go over and stack things in little neat piles.
Right, and this isn't my only area. I have an area in Central Oregon, and the structures there are completely different, and the terrain is completely different, and the trees are completely different, and the Sasquatch seem to be. I'm no expert. Seem to be. Migrate there as well as being nomadic. And nomadic meaning that they come through an area every few days or week, and then I haven't found any living in one particular spot where they don't move around a little bit. So.
Just a little bit about the area. We had BeachFoot this year. I don't know if we can get out the exact location of BeachFoot.
Right.
But it's near the coast. And we were probably, as the raven flies, 10 miles maybe? All the windy roads and everything?
Some people were saying 20, but I don't think it's that many.
Yeah.
And it's we're on the west side of the Coast Range.
Yes.
And this particular area, the tribal name for the Bigfoot here was Austin.
That's the name of the town that's up the road.
No, that's Alsea.
Alsea, okay. My mistake.
But the Alsean Indians called them Austin, and just discovered that a few years ago.
Oh, interesting.
So, and then after buying several books, I discovered that I could find it on the internet. Much easier and much more detail, but
Yeah. Isn't that typical?
yeah.
Like, I'm working on another project, and I'm trying to research it. So I'm getting everything I can on it to read it and then take that information and understand it and then apply it. But there's a lot of stuff on the internet. But again, it doesn't make it true if it's on the internet. So you got to pick and choose some of that resource.
Yeah, I followed the book lead, buying this book, buying that book, and getting more expensive as they go farther back. And then one day I said, I wonder if I Google that, what'll come up. And there it was, everything I'd researched. So
Yeah, you have enough information to write your own book when you get it all put together.
Sometimes.
Now, how did you get involved with the Bigfoot stuff? How does an artist get involved?
It started really interestingly. Before I retired, I was kayaking on the Columbia River one time, and this is a super simple way to get involved. It got bad weather, ended up at the Maritime Museum in Astoria, and they had a bookstore with Jeff Meldrum's book, and I bought that, and it was okay. And eventually I bought Joe Beelart's book, and that got me much more excited about Bigfoot. And I was clearing some trees on my property over in Lapine, and I started talking to the locals and asking them about Bigfoot. Oh yeah, well, so some troopers saw one up there, and some people, and I started looking, and the first year was total zip. I did everything wrong. I saw stuff, I just didn't know what I was looking at, and so I reanalyzed everything I did. Went out the next year, completely different program, a lot of footwork, a lot of hiking, a lot of paying attention, and I started finding evidence, and I was hooked at that point.
So when you first got into it, a lot of people do that too. It's like, It's almost like a ball and a dog.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, wait, where it go? So you're over there, you're over here, you're over there, over here. But you figured it out. Some people haven't done so yet. And walking with you, and you're telling me about all these different things, is you stop and you look at a lot of detail. I mean, you just don't look, pedal the metal and just go crashing through the place. You're stopping, you're looking, you're listening.
Yeah, growing up, I was, in my family, we deer hunted legally. I know a lot of people poached too, but we were not well off, and a deer or two in the freezer made a big difference on our bills. And Western Oregon deer hunting is in thick brush, and you walk slow and you look at everything, and that's how I do stuff. I mean, I've gone hunting with people in other places in other states, and they just go hell-bent for leather through the woods and try to get to some place and get out their binoculars and their spotting scope, and that's not how it works. I spend time stalking, tracking, looking for little things. And the first year was just crashing around, driving an ATV 70 miles in a day and getting off and looking at this overlook and looking at the sandy area for tracks, and it just didn't pay off. And when I did see stuff, I didn't know what I was looking at.
It's amazing. If you don't know what to look for, everything looks status quo.
Yeah.
And if you don't go to the same place over and over again, you're not going to see change. And that's that change that you talked about.
Right. And I think it's really critical, if you want to have success, going back to the same place over and over and over and over. My search area in Central Oregon, I've been going to for 7 years. And the window for being successful is just 4 months, and they migrate out of the area, in my opinion. And over here on the west side, you can do it all year round if you don't mind rain, and Oregonians don't mind rain.
Yeah.
But I tend to do it once or twice a week, and I go to the same area until it gets logged, and that usually is the end of that area, and I have to move somewhere else. And this area we're in right now is a new area for me.
Right, and you don't have to give out locations. I know everybody has private places they go to, and exploitation of the people's areas.
Right.
That's one of the biggest things about it, because you have somebody. Let's say you're used to going to a certain area, and you're used to experience certain things, and then a new person comes in. Are they going to treat the place with the same respect?
Usually not, but
It's one thing I've run into is Sunset Magazine. They'll come to the parks, and they'll like, where are all the beautiful places? You know, we send the public to places to go see, but we don't send them to all the really good stuff, because it's part of us. We're the internal customers. We see beautiful places. We want them to stay pristine, and only certain people get to see those places. The rest of the people could go to see all the other things people are going to go see. So Sunset Magazine comes along, and they butter us up, and they say, where are all the beautiful places? Because they got this magazine with a lot of people reading it, wanting to see new places. Outside Magazine, you know, I was one of the guys who did the same thing. And they ask us, we go, no, there's really not anything great. There's these things here that we send people to go see. And that's usually what we do. So we're no fun. Yeah.
Well, when I started this, I was pretty protective of my areas, and then I started showing a lot of people, and then I kind of pulled back a little bit, and it's now I show my areas pretty readily to people I think are the same mindset as myself, that I trust in the area, that I don't have to worry about stuff, and they're not going to bring 10,000 other people up, and they're not going to be a danger to things. They have the same mindset. They're not out to hurt or hunt or prove anything, really. It's in turn teach me things I haven't learned yet. So
that's the nice thing about it. We are selective. I mean, we have an area we go to, and we do protect it. I mean, we look at it, it's not just a place to go exploit.
Right.
We get experiences when we go to these places, and they mean something to us. And it would be a great world if it meant something to everybody. But everybody gets a different meaning from the areas they go to. So I understand that. And working in parks for years, people go to get away. There are places people want to go to get away and bond with nature and see something different. And part of our job was to provide that opportunity for them so they appreciate the park they're going to. But part of us goes, these people won't appreciate that. You could tell.
Yeah.
You know, how they're smoking cigarettes, throwing them on the ground, or just leaving their garbage everywhere. Everybody.
I do a lot of garbage pickup. You know, I didn't used to do that, and now every so often I'll just pack a couple of trash bags with me and go to an area that's getting trashed and clean it up. And it's amazing, if you clean it up, it sort of stops. But if you don't, once one person sees the trash, another person's adding more trash to it. And really bothers me is little bags of dog poop, and if you're going to bag it, then carry it out.
Right.
Yeah, and that's epidemic in some places. But
I hate stepping in dog poop. I mean, bear poop doesn't have a big smell to it. That's totally different, right?
Bear poop's no big deal. It's kind of fun to run into bear poop, but you know, sometimes you'll come back on the same trail and there'll be bear poop that wasn't there, and you know.
15 minutes earlier, there was no bear poop there, and now there's bear poop there. Now you're looking over your shoulder.
Yeah.
One thing I love to do with people is, well, I don't recommend this. You don't pick up, you don't take a handful of Raisinets and then pretend you're picking up deer poop and then eat the Raisinets. It says, you should try these things. These things are great. We used to joke around with kids on nature walks and stuff, but we can't catch all the kids from eating it. So bad idea.
Yeah, not a good idea.
And on bear poop, it doesn't have a real strong smell you expect.
Right.
So picking it up and smelling it and passing it on for others to smell it, you know, that's an acquired taste, and everybody's going to go for that.
And it depends what the bear's been eating, whether it's eating spawned out fish or apples. It's a completely different thing.
I should say I love it. It makes me think I'm a nut, but apple stuff doesn't come out in solid format.
No.
It's almost like apple. Apple, put it in the blender, and there's your poop party.
Yeah, that's what it looks like, and it squirted out, and it gets all over your boots in some places.
Oh yeah, like by orchards, it's great for that.
Yeah.
So I'll hang around an orchard because it's a great resource in the fall, And then you had all these landmines everywhere, the apple spittle, whatever you want to call it, all over the place.
Yeah, here there's lots of abandoned farms,
Mm-hmm.
and their orchards are still there, but there's no sign of the farm, other than the orchards, and the bears just love that. These trees are really old, and they keep producing. So.
A nice thing too is you can tell what's in the area by what scat piles are piled all over the place.
Yeah, and sometimes they're challenged. You can't figure out who, what, where, what they were eating, and I've had tracks like that too. I took pictures of, and I talked to my tracking friends.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think this is? I can't understand it, and they'll say, I've never seen anything like that, And,
right.
And I'll look at it. I'll blow it up on my computer and look at it and look at it and look at it, and try and figure out what it is. And eventually, I'll come up with an idea. It's a double-step bear that didn't show its claws, and it's maybe missing a toe or something.
There's an art form to reading tracks. Like, a lot of people don't think about that part of it, but tracking is like there's a gait, the step, and if something looks over their shoulder, they will shift their weight and look over their shoulder.
Mm-hmm.
And if they step over something, or if they speed up, they slow down, or something's walking along and it hears a sound, it stops, takes a stutter, turns and looks. Some of the tracks you were
Right.
talking about, like the double taps,
Mm-hmm.
or multiple tracks in one area because maybe you disturbed it. It's like you're hiking back down the trail, and now you see this new pile of poop that wasn't there 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And you go a little bit further, and now you finally see a nice little fresh bear print, and it looked like it must have heard you or saw you because it did that turning, stuttering thing.
Yeah. And I think with Sasquatch tracks, it's really important. I mean, everybody's looking for their first track, and they're looking for that good track. And then you've got the tracks that are, a track line's even more important because
Mm-hmm.
you see the variety and shape. The footprint can change drastically. Just how they stepped on it, how far the step was, the substrate going up and downhill, and you see such a variety in tracks, and even in the same track line. And you learn a lot more from that even than the trophy track you got hanging on the wall. And I also have learned over time to not carry water and plaster for miles and miles and miles unless it's exceptional track.
Learning curve. Yeah, it's funny. We talked about this earlier about quality of tracks. Like some areas near a beach or a lake bed, beautiful, perfect tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't have to carry your stuff that far usually.
Yeah.
And then you got stuff like the surface we're sitting on. You guys, since you're just hearing us, we're basically on a road cut out in the middle of the forest, kicking back, having this little talk here. And you hear occasional plane fly over. Twice has happened, and then you have the birds serenading us as we go, just for a location. But the area we're laying on is pretty much gravel, and just surrounded by forest. And it's not the most comfortable place to sit on, but you can't find tracks on this.
No, not very often. Sometimes in the center of the road, you can find there's a little bit of soil, and I have found a track up here in the I don't know what you call it, the center of the road, where there's a little bit of soil. But it wasn't anything you'd want to write home about.
Oh.
It's the kind you take a photo of and then you circle it with
Twice.
Red. This is a toe here. This is a toe there. But as somebody who's seen a lot of tracks, I knew what it was.
Yeah.
But it's certainly no prize. It's just be able to say, yeah, I know they're here, or they have been here. And that's pretty exciting too.
When you got back to your car, did you go buy a lotto ticket?
No, I should sometimes do that. When I find a nice structure, I feel like that. But you can be anything out in the woods. It's a good day when you see a bear. It's a good day when you find a structure. It's a good day when you find something that's out of place and you can't explain. Something to go home and think about is always
right.
That's a good day. When you go home and you have nothing to think about, you start questioning what you're doing out in the woods. It should be you should always find something that gives you a little challenge.
Oh yeah, but it's not like I'm going to go for a walk today, and I know I'm going to find a bear. I mean a Bigfoot print.
Yeah,
it's almost like be pleasantly surprised when you stumble upon something you can't explain.
right. And it's a growing thing and it's a learning thing. And one year I could go out in the woods and find tracks so easily I couldn't throw a rock without finding a Bigfoot track. And I thought I've really arrived as a tracker. I know it all. Well, they prove you wrong real quick. Next year I struggled to find a few tracks, but the growing thing was then I got into structures. When I'm desperately looking for tracks, all of a sudden I find something I can't explain.
Right.
And I'm looking it over and going, well, I guess structures are real,
Yeah, I want to go back to tracks real quick.
Sure.
And then we'll hit structures because
Yeah.
that's what we were sharing with you today.
Yeah.
So how does one tell the difference between a bear print and, I'm going to say alleged Bigfoot print?
Okay. Well, first thing I would look for is on a bear print, you're going to look for the claw marks.
Okay.
I mean, that's the most obvious thing. If it has claw marks, it's not a Bigfoot. It's not, they've got big bear claws and they dig into the ground. Another thing is that the bear print is going to have the little toe is on the inside and the big toe is on the outside.
Is that for the both? I know, obviously
Front and
on
back.
the front. So
Yeah.
it's at the rear as well.
As well. And so if you're following a track line and the little toes are on the inside, it's a bear.
Mm-hmm.
And even if they're double striking, if the little toe is on the inside and you look at the next step, you can tell which is the inside. If you got two tracks, you know which is the inside. And look for those little tracks. But I have been almost fooled a few times. So I double strike, and deep double strikes. And I went and took a photograph and I put it on my computer and looked at it and going, that is a Sasquatch track and it's really big. And then I kept blowing it up and then I thought, there's the claw marks.
Mm-hmm.
There's the claw marks. Hard to see, but there are the claw marks. And then I look more and I can see it's a double strike. But they'll fool you.
That's the trap we got to watch out for because we look at that thing and it's shaped like a Bigfoot track.
They do.
A big human track. You're like, oh, because the average, I guess around here, I'd probably be the same as Northern California. It's like 7-inch average size rear
bear
print.
Yeah, what is it? The back one's smaller. What's the front one? I forget.
Yeah, the front one's kind of a
Yeah.
short little wide thing,
Yeah,
and the one in the rear is definitely longer, and it's got
yeah.
more of an angular heel.
Right.
And
and the front ones have longer claws.
yeah, it's interesting because I often wonder why are the big toes on the outside.
I don't know.
I thought about that. It's so powerful that it pushes and it turns and it moves and it's pushing off the outside, and it
could
makes
be.
sense
Yeah.
to have that strong point on the outside of that.
And it's important to study those tracks, just as important as the Sasquatch tracks. And I think before we got cut off there, we were talking about casting bear tracks, and I find that just as thrilling, a nice bear track.
Yeah, let's talk about that because where's that? Let's admit it. We'll see a nice impression and we're like on it. And let's make a cast of it.
Yeah, I've cast elk and deer and raccoons and possums and squirrels and I have a collection all over my house of every kind of animal just about.
Isn't that funny? Like all researchers have the same problem at home.
Yeah.
You go out and you do casts here, casts there. I've got boxes sitting around with all my casts in it, and it's like my wife asked me, "How many bear casts do you need?" I go, "Well, this is from this area, and this is from this area, and it's not the same."
Yeah, I have some hanging up in frames on the wall, and I tell people this black bear is Alaskan size. This is impressive, and some people just go, "Well, look at the claws." That's all I look at is the claws, and I'm looking at the whole foot, going, "This is an awesome print. You don't get a print like this very often," and so it can be just as thrilling a day by finding a good bear track.
Oh yeah, and it's greater chance of finding bear tracks than Sasquatch tracks.
And it's a good chance to practice casting.
Oh,
and and you've got a nice little trophy to hang on the wall, even if you don't have a Sasquatch track. And there's a lot of Sasquatchers that don't have any other kind of animal track on the wall, and it gets kind of boring sometimes. You know, if you see the same track over and over and over on a wall.
It does. So you'll walk over. Some tracks are halfway decent to wait for the perfect track to get a better one to put on your collection on the wall. So are you like the farmer that grows kiwi and gives all the kiwi over to the neighbors? Or you got all these tracks that you don't want to get rid of because they're so nice, but you're willing to give them away to friends.
I've been trading them a little bit, you know. I don't have such a surplus as some people. I know people who have huge collections are just beautiful pieces. I had another researcher, and I won't say their name, that looked at my tracks and said, these are museum quality. And I'm going, I was happy, had a big grin, but the truth is, I just have the good ones. I have a pile of crap, blob tracks that are sitting out beside the building going to waste because there's nothing to them. They're just blobs. And painfully carried plaster many miles and water many miles for those.
I find the longer I have to go travel to make a cast, the harder it is to get rid of that cast.
I find that it better be a pretty good one nowadays or I won't do it. And a good story about that is I took a friend, he volunteered. He's a former fish and game guy, and he's not a solid Sasquatch believer. I'm a knower. He's a believer. Not really even a believer yet. He's on the fence. And I took him, he volunteered to help me carry plaster and water into this area for a blob print. You know, and we did it, and that was the last time I'll be carrying water and plaster that far unless it's an exceptional print. Well, we did it. And he's standing there kind of, and I'm not going to say his name, he's standing there just kind of looking at these big tracks, and I'm trying to cast them, and he's stepping on tracks. And I keep saying, blank, 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 don't step on the tracks.
Too late.
You know, and he's just kind of wide-eyed looking at him, and he kept stepping on him, and then finally I just said, don't move, you know. And so I made a few casts, and then I said, you know, there's another big ash area up here where there's a burn pile, and in the fall they seem to migrate south through that area. And I was up here the other day when I found these tracks, and there was none. But before we go back, we've come so far, we need to go up there. And we went up there, and there were fresh tracks coming up the hill from 3 individuals, and they turned around and went back the other way. And I think it's because they heard me telling him,
Don't step on the
don't
tracks.
step on the tracks, because they were really fresh. You could see the little creases between the toes, but really deep. And I kept going, why did he turn around on this hill? And it's because they heard us.
Sound travels a long ways in the forest. We forget about that.
Yeah. And so I was really close to seeing 3, and I didn't get 2. But I saw a beautiful 19-inch track, and I was really happy to see it. It wasn't castable. I tried. It was in such deep, soft stuff that it just... But taking photos of them before I tried to cast them, you could see this little, just a fine ash between the toes.
That's that detail. It's real hard because I can take pictures of things, but it doesn't do its service. So we take one from the top, we take one from the side, we try to get the angle of it, we get our tape measure out, we take a picture of our measurements, we know how big it was, width and length, and then we cast it.
Yeah.
And you look at the cast, and then you look at the photo, and you go, "Is this the same thing?"
Yeah.
That perspective, it's hard. As people will present me with pictures, and I'm looking at them, and I need more than just a photograph. I need angles. When I'm there, I can look at the terrain, and it's just tough. But you probably get a lot of people bringing you pictures and asking your opinion on them.
Yeah. Well, there's blobby as some of the blob tracks.
You got to circle those so you can figure out where it is.
Yeah, and sometimes circling things is not a bad thing. I mean, I cast a juvenile track last fall, and it's a beautiful cast track, but I took pictures of it and circled actually where the toes were and how one folded way back, the little one. And if you turn the track on its side, you can see the whole bone. And everybody said, well, it looks like it's injured. And I'm going, this track shows the flexibility that this young one had, because, first of all, if it was human, they'd be headed for the hospital. They'd be needing a surgery right now. And I saw more tracks later of the same individual, and it wasn't folded back. So I think they just have amazing flexibility, at least the young ones.
Right. Well, it makes sense because, well, there's been some tracks where something steps on something and the foot molds around the object that's there. And
Yeah, I have cast tracks with rocks in the bottom of the foot.
I have a couple of those too. And I kept the rocks.
Yeah, I did too.
And so when I'm talking about it, how the foot molds around and flexible, you could see the rock fits into the plaster cast.
Yeah.
And then you could see some little, lack of better words, dermal ridges or loops.
Yeah, I can see some on the
arcs
side
and
of the
swirls on the fingertips and stuff.
I can see some on the side of the track too.
Yeah.
They're like little. You shine a flashlight at it, and you can see those little lines, and pretty interesting. I've seen where the pad, when getting 2 or 3 casts of the same foot, you can see how the pad moves too. It can move over to the side, and it's depending on what they step and what angle it is. That's pretty interesting. It must have a lot of fat or padding under the.
Well, if that's your footwear, it's you're tromping all over it.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So it's pretty exciting to look at them. I'm not trying to prove anything to them. I just like looking at them, and exploring them. And like I do say, I sometimes trade things, and I haven't made molds yet, but recently I was given a really nice infant cast from up in Washington, and it's just awesome to look at.
That's good. Now, people see these perfect tracks and they want to cast the best of the tracks. But we had talked about this a little before, but you say there's detail in some of the tracks that don't look so good that could be beneficial.
That's true, but my first rule is never cast the best track first, and that's because you're most likely to screw up on the first one. But the other thing is, if you have enough plaster to do more than one, you don't have to get all the best ones, and you never know what kind of great little surprise you're going to get with some of the funky ones, and there's just luck of the draw. But you are going to try and cast the best one, I think.
Well, that's human nature. Like Blossberg, right? Mm-hmm. Cripple foot.
Yeah.
Who would want it? That one's messed up.
Yeah.
But yet there's some detail in that makes you think, like lining up the anatomy, or why is there protrusions on the side, and it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
And one thing people forget to do is multiple casts of the same foot in a stride.
Yeah, I did that by accident. One of my first castings was somehow I blew the left foot and I got 3 of the right. And of course I was new at it, and after looking at them I can see there's a scar on the right foot. Now I know that individual, and I can see how it moved. The pad, the toes changed. It was pretty awesome. And at first I was going, oh, I wish I had a left and a right,
Yeah.
instead of 3 rights, but it was worth it in the end.
Well, that is something to think about. But finding a beautiful trackway is a rarity. And so we get our track here, track there. Like you find that one track in the middle of a road, and then you go buy the lotto ticket afterwards. Yeah. And one track in the middle of a road. What are the odds of that?
Yeah. I've come to appreciate it. Like I said, that there was a year that I couldn't throw a rock without finding a good track. And I quit casting a lot of stuff I should have cast. And I quit photographing stuff. Sandy Nelson was looking at one of my photo albums, and she said, "Did you cast that one?" I said, "No." She said, "I would have cast that in a minute." And I said, "Yeah, but this and this, and I wasn't sure about." And she's going, "That is an awesome track," and it's because of all the abnormalities about it. And you look back and you go, "Yeah, I should have cast some," and there's a lot of them I shouldn't have cast. It's a learning process.
It's counterintuitive.
Yeah.
To get the other crappy casts when you could get all these nice, beautiful ones. Mm-hmm. But it's something to think about. Yeah, the area we're at is pretty much private land.
Yeah.
Fallen road cuts, And there's something else that it's pretty much turned your head, that makes you think about things a bit more. You don't find footprints very often, but you do find them. But there's other things that you were showing me, some of these.
Yeah, the structures.
Yeah.
Structures encompasses a lot of things. It could, from glyphs to big, huge things, you know.
Yeah, when you say glyphs, go ahead and explain what you mean by that.
Glyphs are like little stick signs or little
Okay.
things and I'll probably get in trouble with some of the stuff I say here, but I have seen stuff that I believe are glyphs, and I can't interpret them. Sometimes I can. I think I can. There are a lot of people that that's a glyph, you know, a couple little twigs and across, and where we're at right now, there's piles of those, and it's even worse in Central Oregon. So if I'm on a smooth path, a game trail that's absolutely smooth and no debris on it, and all of a sudden there's those little manipulated sticks and pine cones and rocks in the middle of the trail, well, that's a glyph to me. But I still haven't, and it may be something I come around to, that every stick is a glyph. So that's something I'm still working with, but structures I find very interesting.
And there's something that I see them in a lot of places, and we have like, oh, okay, snow knocked them down, or branches, they just fall down, and stuff that I was looking at today with you. It's almost like they're hanging his way, or like I mentioned earlier, where there's just a pile of sticks. There's a snag that's fallen across the road, and the branches are broken off, and they're like laid on one side instead of falling on the left and falling on the right. They're like broken on the left side, and then just on the other side of the road, right by a tree, there's like a stack of about 5 or 6 of them laid right next to it, parallel.
It's literally a stack.
Yeah, I mean, that's not a natural movement.
No, and it's not. They're not chainsawed or axed, or they're all broken off. And it's something I've been noticing in the last couple of years here in the Coast Range, is that these windfall trees in the winter, within a short period of time, and short period of time meaning months, all the limbs on top start being broken off. And we're talking trees that were still alive when they fell. And that's unexplainable, you know. Well, it is explainable to some people.
Yeah, but it's like, huh.
Yeah, and we were talking about one I found that had fallen very recently across a small draw, a deep draw with a creek at the bottom, and it went almost all the way across, and all of a sudden, all the top branches are gone. And the side ones and the bottom ones are still hanging there. This tree suspended way out across this draw, and I think the young ones run out there and jump off to the other side.
You're saying like the branches are broken off
Broken
the sides?
off. The side ones are not broken off, and neither
Just
the
the ones on the top.
Just the ones on the top.
And did you see like an impact area on the other side? Or?
No, it didn't actually impact. It ends up about 5 feet short of the other side.
Okay.
And so I think they get out there, and the last 2 or 3 branches are still there. And I think it's almost like a handle you hang onto and bounce the thing and then jump.
Like a jungle gym.
Yeah, it looks like it's a kid's playground, and I don't think the big ones go out on it. They might, but it's one of those things. It's like there's no other explanation other than somebody deliberately, something,
with posable hands.
Yeah, because you had to grasp those, and they're not talking small branches. We're talking 2 to 3 inches in diameter, some of them, you know, and that takes a little bit of effort to break them off.
I agree with that. Yeah, even though some of these trees, like predominantly fir shears, they snap off pretty, you know, they tend to snap versus twist and stuff.
Yeah, and we were talking too that there are tree breaks here, but there's certainly a debate about tree breaks, you know.
Yeah, that's one of those things where a lot of experts on that field, and I guess the only way to figure out what happens is to put an area under surveillance and document how the branches fall out of the tree and land on the ground. But what I saw, you showed me, there are areas where the branches appear to be leaning against certain things in some areas.
Yeah, there are trees here. You'll go along a quarter of a mile or an eighth of a mile, and all of a sudden there'll be a little area where they're like little tiny teepees around a tree trunk. There'll be 10 to 15 little branches, and one place up to 21 branches stacked around the tree. And we saw that stump that I call the arch stump.
Yeah.
A stack of branches that kind of snake over the top of the tree and down the other side. And that was pretty interesting. And then there's the bigger V that's some kind of signage of some sort, I think. I've seen those in Central Oregon, but they come and go there. They'll be there 1 week, and we're talking about 2 sticks that are 5 inches in diameter that are 8 feet long, leaned up against a tree, and then they just disappear. They're there 1 week and they're gone the next. And then a new one will pop up and go. This one has been here a long time.
It just seems unusual. I mean, I don't take tree branch and break all that seriously. I haven't. But then I don't spend. I'm not I'm not sitting there going, okay, this is a good factual thing I'll use. Being in the forest all the time, I see broken branches. But I haven't given it a lot of serious thought. But after talking to you and listening to what you had to say and seeing different areas, I have to start paying a little more attention to some of this stuff. I'm too busy thinking of other things, but it's like leaning against, why is it leaning against this tree and why is it not leaning against this tree over here? And then what I thought was unusual, it just seemed like, I don't have my compass with me, but you're guessing in north-southeast directions. And like, why does it look like it's these trees kind of in a direction? Like, it's not following the contour. Like, I would think boundaries are in contours. You follow like a ridge line or whatever. These aren't following contours. They're just like, okay, it goes from this point, it kind of heads that way.
Right.
And I was like, what? Why is it not? Why is it going this way? Why wouldn't it follow the natural contour? So what is your feeling on that?
I really don't know. And like in these forests in the Coast Range, I've been finding these little stick structures, and they're not in the Central Oregon area. The structures there are very grandiose and large, big what called asterixes, and they have, you're talking 30-foot trees with the stump end up, the roots up in the air, and all interwoven, and it takes a very large Sasquatch to do that.
Or really heavy equipment.
Or heavy equipment in the area where you can't get heavy equipment.
But then you'll see some sign of heavy equipment.
Yeah, and there's none of that around. And I've seen a nursery over there. I call it a nursery. Lots of sticks, large sticks piled against a big log that's a little ways off the ground, and then bark woven into it, and then pine needles in a little enclosed cave underneath it. And that's completely different. I found something similar here, but they're using little sticks again.
So, like a baby crib?
Yeah, it's like a little area. You put a little one in, and you go forage, and somebody babysits. I assume that's how it works.
Yeah, but what would be unusual is that's not a natural thing. I mean, that's not.
No, it's not. It's not natural at all. The big pieces of bark interwoven in all these sticks is not a natural thing either. And I've seen Marcia Moore just posted some stuff like that up up by somewhere in Washington, close to where she lived, and she's just recently moved to North Carolina, I believe.
Okay.
But I guess I shouldn't be naming names.
Oh, it's okay. It's a place.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, they might not like it, but
Oh, she won't mind.
Yeah,
We're friends.
There's something else that's kind of maybe think about it is why do you mentioned earlier about like this when everything gets logged, that once like when they start doing the initial thing, you mentioned before, like some of the sticks just start disappearing.
Yes, yeah.
You want to talk about that?
That's a pretty recent thing for me. I mean, just in the last year in the Coast Range, I started discovering these little stick structures. And the previous place I had been going 3 or 4 years, I got daytime vocalizations that were just awesome, and lots of tracks, but nothing worth casting. But they were pretty good size. And then there was lots of these little stick structures in certain areas, sort of like what we were looking at today. And then a certain timber company, we won't name them,
That's fine,
started logging the area. And it's their area, and they have a right to log it. And all the little stick structures were dismantled. They were gone. And it hadn't been logged that particular, the logging was within a mile or half a mile, and it was headed that way, and it will destroy that part. But all the little stick structures disappeared, completely gone. The trees were all bare around the bottom. The original branches on the tree are still there, but all the little structures are dismantled.
So if I were to cut a tree down, 3 feet, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I would remove the branches that are poking me in the face.
Right.
Not just remove the branches
That were leaning
face.
against it, yeah.
That's kind of unusual.
And I don't think the timber companies have crews walking through there and picking the loose branches off the bottom of trees.
No, they pile them and burn them later.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, and it's a production thing. They go fast, and they fallers cut a lot of trees in a day. And this dismantled stuff is pretty interesting to me. That's a recent thing. And I had a forester I was working with a little bit over there, and he became aware of this thing, and so he emailed me. He had a new structure on a little teepee structure right where he was working, and he showed me some pictures, and I went out, looked at it, and I'd seen a lot of stuff like it. I wasn't terribly excited, and then I get an email from it. Oh, never mind, you don't need to come out here because it's gone now. It was here yesterday, but it's gone now. And so they do dismantle stuff, and it must mean something. It's not just play. It's if they're taking them down, or maybe they don't want them to be discovered. I don't know, or discovered. They don't mind me discovering because I'm not a threat. But maybe they don't want the timber company. Maybe they're afraid the timber company will discover them. I don't know.
Yeah, interesting. Well, we look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Humans, or I guess we'll say thinking humans, you do things for reasons. Right?
Uh-huh.
Shelter, food. But one of those is, maybe religious.
Mm-hmm.
One of those is like recreation or art.
Yeah.
You're an artist.
Well, yeah, some of these look like art to me. I mean, they don't serve any real function other than maybe they're a message or something. I sometimes wonder, and this goes to glyphs, if we think there can't be a message in these little sticks imprinted in them, but we put messages on little plastic discs that have a whole movie or a whole record album.
Yeah.
Maybe they're putting something into those sticks that we can't see or hear or understand. I'm not opposed to saying that. It's a little weird. It's a little out there, but I'm a little weird and a little out there, and had plenty of interesting experiences.
Let's say you've had time to think about this. Out and about, looking at these things.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people just don't give a second thought to it.
No. I was showing these sticks to somebody just recently, these stick structures, and they were just flabbergasted because they've been walking through their property and other properties, and they were a hunter and they were into Sasquatch, and they'd never even considered that these were constructed. They never even looked. They just have like tunnel vision, and once they are pointed out to them, they're walking around going, well, here's another one. And here's another one. And this couldn't just be a natural thing. This is constructed. And they were almost having a hard time wrapping their head around it. And not really, but in a way you could see the wheels kind of
thinking about it.
I never thought of this before. I need to go back to the places I've been and see if they have them. And so it goes back to when I thought I was a great tracker, and all of a sudden I couldn't find tracks, and I'm desperately going through the woods looking for tracks, and all of a sudden I see something I can't explain. And I'd told somebody not much earlier that I didn't really know about structures. I didn't know if I believed in structures. And all of a sudden I see something I can't explain, and I decided I would definitely look for structures while I was looking for footprints. And within a day, I found 6 things I considered a structure.
Interesting.
And that was in Central Oregon. And I was like, all of a sudden it replaced tracks. I can now find structures like I could used to find tracks, and it's been a growing process. It seems like something's easy, and then all of a sudden it's hard, and then something else is easy, and it just keeps changing. And I learn new things.
It's like a bar curve. You go reach up, you'll find the apex and hit something else. Well, yeah, we talked earlier. It's you change things. It's like you used to go from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as you're going from point A to point B, you're looking for things out of place or something different.
Yeah, it's real important to do the same area over and over. I don't know if that's the part that got cut out and we were talking about, but in Central Oregon, I've been going to the same place for 7 years. I know the terrain. I know when things are out of place, and I know when all the sounds and smells and everything. And the Coast Range here, I'm getting used to that. And there, like we were talking today, there's several different areas in the same forest, which I have a permit, by the way.
Which is important.
Yeah,
no trespassing, do everything legal.
Yeah, and I got a permit from the timber company, and I've been in different parts of their forest here, and there's different things going on. One place there's tons of tree breaks. One place there's tons of structures. There's 2 or 3 roads. There's nothing going on, and areas. And there's overlooks so you can see evidence of stuff going on there. And so, yeah, you have to just go and do it. You have to be, and that's really important to go to the same place for a long time if you can. Here, things get logged. I can see these woods we've been in today. We saw some markers.
Oh yeah, I saw the flags.
Flags. So
the clock is ticking.
Yeah, once it gets to just a perfect forest, the Sasquatch love it, but so do the loggers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sustained yield. It's a resource and it's managed, and we all like paper products.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of rules in place that keep people from exploiting areas, like no taking of timber near riparian areas,
right.
just like the creeks and stuff. So it's a managed thing, and we all need it. So logging does take place, and it's great when the logging companies are responsible logging companies and doing the right thing.
Yeah, timber and clear cuts aren't necessarily bad, or cuts. And there's a lot of thinning nowadays too.
Yeah, which is more expensive than opening it a large area up. Yeah,
but that gives new growth, and that feeds the elk and the deer, which in turn feed the Sasquatch, and so. And it cuts, debatable whether it cuts down on fires or not.
Yeah.
But it definitely provides more food than a dense canopy.
It does, and that's something we always, bad timber harvest, but, disasters go through an area, and it changes the environment.
Right.
Open areas provide more sunlight, provides more browsing material for ungulates.
And that brings me back to something I was just thinking of recently, and this is a recent thought. They're doing a lot of controlled burns in Central Oregon, and every time there was a controlled burn, my Sasquatch action disappears. And I thought, well, they're getting out of the area because of the controlled burn. And that seems reasonable, but counterintuitively, it might be they're going to the burn because you got roasted squirrels and rabbits and maybe the occasional deer. It'd be very easy to walk around at night and not step on an ember because you could see it, and just reach into every burrow and pull out what's roasted in there. It might be a great food source for very little energy.
I like following along roadways for roadkill.
Yeah, well, that's a possibility too.
Like ravens, where we camp, we hear the ravens vocalizing way in the mornings and in the afternoons. Who knows what they're really saying to us, but
no idea.
But
I love ravens.
they have their routine.
Yeah.
And they're policing their area. You got point A to B, B to C, C to D, and they know areas. Like I have a field next to me, and they plow it under, and next thing you know, birds are showing up to see what's left over.
Oh yeah, we mow a field and see what happens. You'll have birds following you everywhere.
Oh yeah, it's like, well, what do you got for me?
But it's very possible. I mean, I don't know, but it would seem reasonable for a free meal to go into a controlled burn area after it's done.
Oh yeah, makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And you get jerky later, or you get barbecued food.
Yeah. In the winter range where they go, and I think in Central Oregon, I think that they they come back a little before the deer and elk because they're looking for those deep freeze goodies of animals that didn't make it through the winter, and they're perfectly preserved. So.
Yeah. The refrigerator door is open.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm going to close here. We're
Okay.
running out of time. Last thing. Is there anything you'd like to say to somebody like who's getting into research or some about things to look for?
Get out there and have fun. The more you do it, your odds go up. Yeah, that's the bottom line. The more you get out in the woods, the better your chances are.
The more you see, the more you learn. The more you learn, the more you know, and the
Yeah.
better you can answer questions.
Yeah.
Well, Dennis, thank you so much.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate it. You're taking your time, and yeah, I know I talked you into it, and you gave me a nice walk. I appreciate that. I got to see a place outside of where we're staying at the campground, and got to know you a little bit better. Although I spent a few days with you, and it's kind of nice. And
Yeah.
we both wear capotes.
Yeah.
We made ourselves.
Yes.
We're the Capote brothers now.
Yeah. Yeah, we discovered a couple other people there have them and didn't bring them, and they promised to bring them next year.
Yeah, it's a small world we live in when it comes to reenactment and capotes. Capote is basically, we have blanket capotes. They're made out of blankets.
Yeah.
Some
French-Canadian design.
Yeah, French-Canadian design. At one point, you had the glacier blanket or the candy stripe. But anyhow, so the blankets were turned into warm outerwear with hoods and belts and fringe outfits, and that's what they wore.
It's like a big bathrobe.
Yeah, except it's made of wool, so it's itchy.
Yeah. Itchy and warm when it gets cold out.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
On
you.
that note, we just wanted to provide you a little different. This is with the out in the field. You get to go talk to people out in the field, which I prefer more so than sitting on the phone. And thank you so much for the opportunity.
Well, thank you.
All right. That's
Okay, Robert.
Great. So that's it for now. And we got more interviews popping up, and we'll try to get some more perspectives to the BeachFoot days.
Okay, I'll get you back before you have to speak here.
Oh, that's right. I'm supposed to speak at 4. I think we got plenty of time. All right. Well, thanks so much.
Carry my tune, the only one to hear my song. All the coyotes and the wolves, but if I drink enough of this flask, I can hear